Welcome to Kathryn Raaker's World. Innovation, culture, adventure, fashion and health, artists, destinations, traditions. This is Kathryn Raaker's World.
Hi, this is Kathryn Raaker of Kathryn Raaker's World, our syndicated TV show, and our syndicated radio show, Let's Just Talk. Our guest today is very distinguished Alex Tarnava, who is the CEO of Natural Wellness and the inventor of the hydrogen water tablet, which I take every single day. So I'm so honored to have him for the simple reason he's changed my life. Because I used to be able to not digest things correctly. And guess what? Today, I just slip one of these things into my glass and I just drink it. Anyhow, so I'm excited because you started out as you stumbled upon it, molecular hydrogen, because you were looking for an emerging therapy that could slow down your osteoarthritis, which you developed at an early on his physical prime. You're an athlete, a science enthusiast, and you were skeptical at first, like I was, especially because so many companies were out there claiming to heal illness with hydrogen water, but without any data to back their claims. I want to welcome you to my show today. I'm so excited when they called me and said, would you do this? And I went, guess what? I could do a testimonial on this because I've been drinking it for a year. So I was skeptical like you because I thought I've tried everything to help my digestion. And once you lose your gallbladder, like I did when I was at a young age, certain people can't digest things properly. So it's helped me immensely. So why is, in your opinion, hydrogen water so effective in increasing energy and reducing inflammation?
So the reason it works so well is it's something that we have evolved to anticipate. It's something called an adapted stress, right? So, for instance, exercise is an adaptive stress, right? When we don't exercise, we become very unhealthy, right? And now we're learning that hydrogen has this critical role within our cell. It's kind of like exercise for our mitochondria, which is a power plant of our cell. And when we don't get these peaks and valleys of hydrogen, just like how we get exercise as this acute stress that we recover from, we don't experience the role that hydrogen plays within our cell, which is sort of like a regulatory role. It helps us adapt to all of our physiological stresses, and it helps all our functions, many of our functions in our body, return to homeostasis or harmony. Right? So it's not so much that hydrogen gives you energy, it's that it restores energy imbalances so that you can be at your optimal level. For instance, like we have clinical research on the hydrogen tablets showing that we're equivalent to or outperform caffeine, for raising attention and brain metabolism after sleep deprivation, but it's not a stimulant. So it's not working like caffeine to just give you fake energy. It's restoring your brain metabolism, and the energy within your system so that you can perform as if you hadn't had that sleep deprivation. And with inflammation, it's the same thing. So hydrogen is not an anti-inflammatory. And in fact, in some instances, it can raise inflammation for beneficial outcomes. It regulates the production of our cytokines, which can be anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory. So it basically restores our inflammatory system to being healthy and optimal, because our inflammatory system is part of our immune system. We need it for survival as part of our defense. So hydrogen just kind of restores us back to operate how we should be operating.
Right. So one of the things that I found out, because I had a lot of surgeries for my hands this year, Alex, if you don't mind me
Yeah,
calling you Alex.
yeah,
Uh,
no, of course.
and I felt like it really helps me because I love to exercise,
Yeah.
but because of the hand surgery, right? Both hands, different things. Actually, I really felt like, and I can't take a lot of drugs because I'm allergic. And I found that the hydrogen water really helped me. And I'm not sure, does it take toxicity out of your system?
Well, it depends. I mean, toxicity is such a broad term, but there's a lot of things that could be termed toxic that hydrogen can help deal with. Um,
Can you do it? Can you drink it more than once or twice a day?
I wouldn't go past 3 times a day, maybe 4 at the most, but probably 3, between 1 to 3 times a day. So how hydrogen works, just like other adapted stresses like exercise, you don't wanna do it too much, but when you do it, you wanna make sure it is a real stress. Like, for instance, if you just lightly exercise all day long,
Right.
you might not get stronger. That just can turn to chronic stress. And the same thing, if you're just sipping on hydrogen all day long, then you're not actually peaking the H2 properly in your cell. You're just keeping it elevated. So you just have the slight stress that's in your mitochondria all day long, and you're not giving that chance for recovery. Because how hydrogen works, it's just like exercise. You stress out your body, and then your body adapts and becomes stronger. With hydrogen, you stress out your mitochondria, and then your mitochondria recovers, adapts, and becomes stronger. It makes more mitochondria, it produces more energy within the cell and starts correcting all the imbalances that are going on. So with H2, you only really want to drink it in a really high concentration and high dose between 1 to 3 times a day, and ideally on an empty stomach. And that gives you a chance to stress out the mitochondria and then get those positive adaptations with recovery.
Usually I drink it right, within a certain period of time after I have breakfast.
I do
Okay.
it before breakfast.
Before breakfast. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, my question is regular tap water or any kind of water?
So a wide range of water is okay with the tablets. What's most important is that the water is room temperature. I designed the tablet to work best at room temperature water because you want to chug the water down quickly. You don't want to just sip it over a long period of time. So if you put it in cold water, it's kind of hard to guzzle down cold water. If you put it in hot water, it's hard to guzzle down hot water. It's most comfortable to quickly drink room temperature water. So room temperature water, the temperature that you can drink quickly is best. And as for the type of water, the other important thing is um, like the pH and mineral content of the water. So a wide range is okay, between about 3 parts per million of total dissolved solids up to 200 parts per million of total dissolved solids. That basically covers all tap water, across the US and Canada.
Right.
Um, that's going to be fine. So what you really want to avoid is very high mineral content alkaline water
Right.
because those alkaline minerals can interfere with the acids in the tablet and impede the reaction. So you'll get less hydrogen if you go too alkaline of the water. And likewise, you get a little bit less hydrogen and it takes a little longer to dissolve if you use distilled water. Because when there's distilled water, there's no electrolytes in the water and it slows down disintegration time of the tap.
I use tap water. So
Okay.
just like
So
you said, I
yeah,
want to make sure because I've heard other people say other things that I think, I've been doing it right the whole time.
yeah.
And I'm amazed at what it's done. But when I talked to this person today, he's a weightlifter and he was in special forces and he had to have 2 hip operations and an immune disorder and a couple of other things. And he's getting back into gear, right? And I just said, this is the best I've ever had. And he asked if he could meet you. And I said, I will ask him. He's a president of a company. He owns his own, just to let you know what he does. He has a company that protects people with his vest, like police officers and soldiers, whatever. So his vests are the most protective vest you could have in the world. So, which
Very
is
cool.
cool. So, but let me ask you a question. How has it helped you with your osteoarthritis? Do you mind me asking you?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, when I developed osteoarthritis, it was after sort of a mystery virus, a mystery illness, when I was in my late 20s. And I basically developed osteoarthritis in 11 different joints
Wow.
overnight after this mystery virus that lasted a couple months. My inflammation had been like super high, like 70 to 100 times abnormal during this period leading up to the OA. And it wreaked havoc on my body, worst of which was my left shoulder. My left shoulder actually has no cartilage left now. It has multiple labral tears and it's bone on bone with, you know, it's absolutely mangled. This is the most I can move it. But the hydrogen, it hasn't been a miracle to like regrow my cartilage in my left shoulder. My left shoulder is just so far gone. But what it has helped me do is not use, strong, anti-inflammatory drugs, right? Which I was previously relying on, which have all sorts of issues, with your GI health, your gastrointestinal health. For instance, when I first went on them, how I ended up developing the tablets is I had to stop all my protocols and I had to stop the drugs because I developed multiple ulcers, 9 months or so after going on medication for the inflammation.
Right.
But since diving into hydrogen, realizing there were no technologies in the market that give it an effective dose, developing the tablets, I've been able to quit anti-inflammatory drugs. And while it hasn't regrown the cartilage in my left shoulder, it's letting me exercise 5, 6 times a week without needing, pharmaceutical drugs. And I'm not sure if it's due to the hydrogen, but there is evidence to show that hydrogen slows down the product, slows down the basically progress of osteoarthritis. I haven't, my OA hasn't gotten worse in my other joints that weren't as bad.
I actually just share this with you. Both of my thumbs, because I am so active. I have a cooking show. I do lots of different things and what I do for my company, right?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I lost the bone disintegrated in both fingers, right? So what they do is they take a tendon, they take the tendon out, they put it where the bone was, right? And
Yeah.
it grows and hardens within a year. So all the time that I was going through this, I was drinking the hydrogen water. And so then I started having trigger finger. And so my family apparently has it. Don't ask me why. But actually that happened. So I had a hip. So the last surgery was December 6th. So let me tell you something. I'm drinking this every day now, actually every day. But I wanted to make sure when I talk to you about it, how many times you really need to drink it. 1 tablet in water. How many ounces of water, Alex?
So this is a tricky one. I designed the tablet for 16 ounces of water, roughly. However, in a lot of our research, we use 8 ounces or 12 ounces, right? So we've got over 20 published clinical trials right now. And what we end up doing when we develop protocols with the hospitals and universities and professors and doctors that are running the trials is we figure out the volume of water that subject group, that study group, can easily and quickly drink. So, for instance, when we're dealing with young, healthy athletes, they can easily chug 500 milliliters. I mean, I put my tablets, I put several tablets in 1 liter of water, which is, close to 34 ounces, right? And I can chug that in a few seconds.
Right.
However, when we've done our trials, like we did a trial on on a elderly population with an age of 70 plus, the average age of 77, and we knew that they weren't going to be able to chug down half a liter or a liter of water in a few seconds. So
Right.
they took more tablets in the day in 8 ounces of water because that was a more comfortable volume to drink.
You have to drink it quickly because you don't want it to sit there. Am I correct?
Exactly. You want to drink it as fast as you can.
Alex, where can people find out about scientific information and why you decided to, invent what you did, the tablet? Tell us where we can find out that information.
Sure. AlexTarnava.com. So I have a lot of information about like ongoing projects that I have going, a little background on the tablets. There's a media link for media that I've done, and um, I believe there's a link to a lot of the blogs I've written for some of the companies that have posted them for me.
So we'll be right back with Alex Tarnava and Natural Wellness, his company, and the inventor of the hydrogen water tablet. We'll be right back. We are back on Kathryn Raaker's World, and let's just talk with Alex Tarnava and his wonderful company, Natural Wellness. He's the inventor of the hydrogen tablet, the water tablet. And, how did you come about inventing the hydrogen water tablets, and how long did it take you to do it?
All right, yeah. So it's basically when I had my health scare, I spent a lot of time scouring PubMed and reading research on anything that could regulate the inflammatory response. The MDs I was seeing had put me on cortisone injections and 1,000 milligrams of NSAIDs of naproxen, which is a leave per day, so 5 times as high as what you get over the counter. And I knew it wasn't a long-term solution, right? So one of the things that I'd found was hydrogen water. I found some research and I bought a machine for like $5,000 to make hydrogen water. And I went on my merry way, continued exercising. And I'd done a really deep dive because I'd been training, 4 to 6 hours a day exercising before that, and I couldn't do that anymore. So I spent all that time that I'd been doing training, reading scientific publications and trying to find, things for my longevity and to reduce the damage that I'd incurred. But about 9 months later, as I mentioned, I developed multiple ulcers. I fainted in the gym a few times. I wasn't processing my food properly because of the damage the naproxen had done to my stomach. So I had to abruptly quit the naproxen, and all my joints froze again. Like I couldn't put on a shirt, I couldn't put on socks. I have arthritis in my hip too, and in my knees, right? So like I was a wreck. And I had to go back to the drawing board, and I realized none of the protocols that I'd put in place were working. The only thing that was working was the pharmaceuticals. And that made me a little bit upset. But when I dove back into PubMed, I found a little bit more research on hydrogen therapy and hydrogen water, which really annoyed me because I had this $5,000 machine that wasn't doing anything for me. But rather than just being upset, it gave me like pause to consider, how do I know what dose I'm getting from this machine, right? How do I know I'm getting enough hydrogen? So I started buying the full studies, right, of the papers on hydrogen water, because most research is basically it's behind a paywall. So maybe you have to pay $30 or $50 or $80 to read the whole study, to see the materials and the methods and how everything was done, basically how they baked the cake on the study. And as I bought a lot of these studies, I realized that absolutely none of them were using a machine like the one I bought. And so then I found a reagent that can test for hydrogen concentration, right, in an aqueous solution. And I tested the water from the machine and it was undetectable. I couldn't detect any hydrogen. I had to actually triple the input to detect 1 drop, of this reagent, which meant that the concentration was only 0.03 parts per million, or 0.03 milligrams a liter. For context, the tablets give over 12 milligrams a liter, or 12 parts per million. So like 360 to 400 times more hydrogen concentration from the tablets, and actually a lot more if you put it in 8 ounces than from this machine.
Right.
So that really blew me away, and it made me realize I haven't tried hydrogen therapy. I haven't tried hydrogen water. I haven't been getting it. I just bought a $5,000 paperweight. Well, I went down and I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to make hydrogen water myself. A lot of the studies had been using the element magnesium. Magnesium is very tightly controlled. There's export bans in most countries that produce it. The only countries that really produce it are like the United States, China and Russia. And when I mean produce it in the grade that we need to make the tablets, right? Like the particle shape and size. It's mostly like military applications and stuff like that, but some pharmaceutical as well, like making implants that dissolve in your body. But I went down the rabbit hole of sourcing the magnesium. When I ended up getting it from the United States, at first I'd gotten some from China and Eastern Europe, but I tested it and it had high levels of heavy metals. So I ended up finding this pharmaceutical grade in the United States. Well, I had to go through the State Department and, show them that I had a real use for this. But I had started my R&D just like to see if it works anyways. And I started making these tablets. And basically, in my first round of tablets in mortar and pestle, I was getting to like 4 ppm and all my joints loosened up. And so I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This is really working. But I also realized that while I knew enough of the chemistry to be making the tablets, I'm not a chemist by training, and I could be missing something. And I'm dealing with the element magnesium and hydrogen gas. Like the element magnesium is the white in fireworks. It burns at thousands of degrees, right? It's super hot. And hydrogen gas, as we know, can be explosive in the right concentrations. It isn't when it's dissolved in water or in the concentrations that can off gas from the glass, like not even close. But I had some pauses to consider. I don't want to blow myself and my house up, and win a Darwin Award, right?
Right.
So I found my founding partner. He's a PhD in organic chemistry. He's from the pharmaceutical industry. He develops, drugs for the pharmaceutical industry. And he told me at first that it was the worst pseudoscience he'd ever heard in his life, and gave me all these reasons why there's no way that hydrogen will have an effect in the body. And even if it did, what I'm doing isn't going to work. And so I countered him and I showed him all the peer-reviewed data, or a lot of peer-reviewed data to counter every one of his objections, and then showed him the data and measurements on what I was already doing. And he looked at it and said, okay, well, it appears there's a little bit of evidence here. Sure, I'll take a look at what you have, but he was still very skeptical. And I kept on firing off a new paper to him every day to read. And serendipitously, I fired off one on a disease model that he was actually the lead chemist developing small molecules to try to treat. And he called me for a lunch meeting and he said, listen, those other studies, I just had to, basically accept the conclusions of the authors because I don't know much about those models. But with this study, unless this is fraud, this stuff works, right? And I wish the molecules I was developing worked as well as this did, right? Have you considered commercializing this, right? Because at this time, I was just doing it for a do-it-yourself project to heal myself and help myself out.
Right, healthy.
Exactly. So we went about. He started working on my formulations and what I'd done, just in the mortar and pestle, and it only took him a few weeks to really fine-tune things. It was pretty close. But then we realized that it's drastically different to make millions of tablets at high speed in manufacturing equipment as compared to making 10 or 20 at a time in a mortar and pestle, right? And, some hand grinding. So it then took us another year. I actually had to read every article and textbook and everything I could find on formulation science, pharmaceutical formulation science, read every old patent, every piece of information, to figure out how to make this at high speed and high quantity and still get the effect we were looking. But it took us thousands of iterative adjustments, 15 failed scale up attempts, and finally a year later, we had our first production ready tablet. And that one only got about 3 ppm, and you had to seal it in a bottle and wait, a couple hours to drink it. But now, years later, 8 years later or so, we have something like 5,000 more iterative adjustments, and we're getting to where we are right now, where you dissolve it in an open glass of water and it can get over 12 milligrams a liter and half a liter.
I have to say thank you. I want to thank you for what it's done for me. I mean, seriously, with the stomach problems I have, right? There's certain things I can digest and I can't. Okay. There's certain foods that really upset my stomach. And like you, I had to find something that wasn't a drug that was going to help me to feel much better. And that's why I want to thank you so much. And I'm so honored to have had you on my show. Alex, keep the work up, buddy. I mean, seriously. Right. And I want to, like I said, I want to thank you again. Give your website.
Oh, alextarnava.com.
Okay, that's good. And ours is KathrynRaakersWorld.com and letsjusttalk.com. And thank you so much for joining me. That's